Hey guys, welcome back to another video. In our today's lecture, we're going to discuss about the fundamentals of CSS. So in our today's lecture, we will first be talking about that what kind of softwares do we need in order to write a code in CSS. We will also discuss that how can you use CSS in your HTML files. What are the different ways of adding CSS in your HTML files? What are the different types of style sheets that you can add, and also how can you write your first code in CSS? So without wasting any further time, let's begin. Okay guys, so now before we actually begin, the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to download the software that we will be needing in order to write our CSS codes in. Now if you already have the Visual Studio Code, you don't really have to download it again, but if you don't, then I can show you how to download that as well. Now if you're using any kind of text editor, like you're using Sublime Text, Atom, or Notepad++, any kind of text editor that you're used to, you can just keep on using that. If you want to follow the series, then you can just download the one that I'm about to show you, that is called Visual Studio Code. And in order to download it, just write over here basically Visual Studio Code in the search bar. Once you type it in, you will see the first basically link. All you have to do is click on the download link over here. Once you click on that, you should see basically this over here. You are basically seeing that we have an option of Windows, then we have an option for Ubuntu and for Mac as well. So if you're a Mac user, go for this one. If you're a Windows user, go for this one. Most probably you will just need these two. You won't be needing the Ubuntu, but in case you are, then you can download it from here as well. Now, what we will do is we will download it for the Windows. I already have it, but I will just show you that what you have to do is just click on this. And once you click on the download option, it will automatically start downloading. Now, I already have it. I'm just going to cancel it for now. Now, once you have downloaded and everything is set, you should see something like this appear once you set everything up. And what we are going to do is you're going to click on the new file option. Once you do that, the new file will pop up. Obviously, it is not saved right now. So go ahead and click on File, go to Save, and save the file and put it on your desktop. And give your file a name. I'm going to name it New File, and then put an extension. Now extension is going to be exactly the same that we have been using before as well. It is just going to be .html, because first of all we need an HTML file, and then inside the HTML file we can add the CSS code as well. There are many different ways, we will look into them as well, but for now just do that. So once you save your HTML file, my HTML file is going to be on the desktop. I'm going to save this and the file has been saved. If I can just go ahead and show you, this is basically where my file has been saved. And if we can open this in the browser, then let's select a browser and let's see if we can open this up. There we go. So the file is open. So there we have it in the browser. The file has been opened, and let me just put it side by side so that you can have a good understanding of what we are about to do over here. So now once you have that set up, and now the next thing that you're going to do is basically you're going to add the HTML tags over here. Now in order to add the HTML tags, the first thing that you're going to do is you're just simply going to put an exclamation mark over here, select the first option that you have, and all the tags basically just pop up. Now this is again something we have already done in the HTML code, so nothing should be new to you. Now over here in the title, we're going to write CSS, and you're simply going to go into the body and just start off by writing a heading, an H1 over here. And we can just say this is a heading, and after that add a paragraph of lorem 100, a dummy paragraph of lorem 100. And once you do that, a dummy paragraph basically just pops up over here. So now what you're going to do is hit refresh, and you should see over here basically the file pops up. You have a heading, you have a dummy paragraph of 100 words. Now this is something you have already done so far. Now what we want to do is basically we want to see how can you edit this, or how can you modify this, how can you change the color of this heading, let's say, or how can you do anything like that using CSS. Now the first way that we are going to learn CSS is going to be using CSS through internal style sheets. So what you're going to do is right after your title tag, this is your title tag basically over here, right? So right after the title tag, press enter and go to the next line. And over here, the first thing that you're going to do is that you're going to open a style sheet. So how do you open a style sheet? How do you do that? Now it is extremely simple. If you want to open up a style sheet, then all you have to do is just add style tags over here and press enter. That is it. This is your style sheet. That is basically how you add your style sheet. So just add a style sheet tag, just a style tag, and just close it, press enter between them, and that is pretty much all you need. So now you have the style tags over here, and the next thing that you need is, now before we do anything, before we start coding CSS, let me just make you understand what we are going to do. Let me just break down the semantics of writing a CSS code basically. So the first thing inside the style sheet, the first thing that you're going to need is the name of the selector. Write the name of a selector. Now, what is a selector? A selector basically means which HTML tag are you trying to select over here? Are you trying to select a heading? Are you trying to select a paragraph? Are you trying to select an image, a video, the body? What are you trying to select? That is your selector. Which HTML tag are you going to select? Now, once you have written that, after that, you're just simply going to put curly braces, right? And then press enter. Now, after you have the curly braces, you have the selector, the next thing that you're going to need is a property. Now, what is a property? Now, a property basically means that what would you like to change about this selector basically. Let's say if you have a heading here, what would you like to change about the heading? If you have a paragraph, what would you like to change about the paragraph? So the property basically means that what would you like to change about this particular selector? For example, are you about to change the color? Do you want to change the background color? Do you want to change the font size? What do you want to do? That is basically your selector over here. So if you want to change a color, it would simply be a color. If you want to change a background color, property would be the background color. So that is basically what a property does. It basically tells you what do you want to change about your selector. And after that, once you've written your property, whatever that was, then you put a colon in the front. Okay. Now, once you have the colon, after that, what you're going to do is you're going to write a value and then put a semicolon at the end. Now, what does the value do? Now, value basically means that how would you like to change it? For example, if the property was color, then the value will be the name of that color. If the property again was a font size, then the value will be the size of the font. If the property was the width, then the value will be the size of width. How much width do you want? That is basically how you write a CSS code. And this is basically just a general semantics of how you write it. Now let's get into it. Now let's say that for this heading, the first thing that we want to do is we want to change the color of this heading. So how are you supposed to do that? Now the first thing is, what will be the selector? As I told you, selector is the tag that you're trying to select. So if I talk about the heading, think about it. What should be the selector? If you guessed it, you're right. It's the H1. So since H1 is the tag for the heading, that is my selector. This is what I'm trying to select. So you're going to write H1 over here. Now, once you write the H1, this is your selector. If you notice this, you must have noticed it, that I didn't put the less than or the greater than sign over here. You don't have to. In CSS, you just write the name of the tag as it is without any less than sign, without any greater than sign. Just write the name of the selector. That is it. Over on the top, you can also see that it's saying this is a selector specific. Now, after that, what you want is you need to write the name of the property. The property name, again, I told you, what do you want to change? So let's say we want to change the color of the heading, this heading. We want to change the color to red. So how would you do that? The property is simply going to be color and the value, the name of the color, any color, for example, red, right? Now, if I save this and I go back and refresh this, there you go, changed. The color of the heading changed to red. Now, let's say that same thing you want to do with the paragraph as well. You want to change the color of the paragraph. So now what will you do? After your closing of the entire heading, now this is your basically the first selector, the H1. Now after this entire selector, you will add another one. And now if I want to select the paragraph, then the tag for the paragraph is P. So that means I just put P over here. And then I put curly braces and press enter again. Now think about it. What should be the property if I want to change the color? It's just going to be the color. So you're just going to put color over here, colon, write the value. Let's put the same color just for the consistency. And now let's just refresh this. And there you go. Now don't forget to put the semicolon at the end. After you basically write this entire line of code, you're going to make sure that you basically add a semicolon at the end. This basically, if you want to visualize this basically acts like a closing tag. So whenever you write the entire property, the value at the end of that line, you have to basically put a semicolon so that you can close that entire line. So now this is basically how you can change the colors using CSS. This is how you can just generally write a CSS code. Now this was one way of doing it. And now what I showed you right now is called internal style sheets. Basically, internal style sheet means when after the title you add a style tag, and inside that style tag you basically write your CSS code. If you're doing something like this, then you're going to say that I'm using internal style sheet. Now, there is basically another one that is known as inline style sheet. That is another way of doing it. So let me show you that what is another way you can add the style. So I'm just going to remove this, what I added over here. I'm going to refresh my file so that everything looks normal now. No, none of the styles have been applied over here. I removed all the CSS code that I wrote. Now, another way would be the inline style sheet. The inline style sheet means that you write everything that you want to modify about a tag inside that tag over here. So in this way, you're basically putting an attribute over here that is going to help you add CSS. So how will you do that? Let's say we want to change the color of the H1. How are we supposed to do that? Using inline style sheets. So in order to do that, you will go inside the H1 tag before the greater than sign and press a space over here. Now write the attribute style. You can select this option, put an equal to, and you get quotes. And over here, you're going to see a bunch of properties over here. Now, we want to change the color of the heading. So the property name that we are going to add in the quotes, first thing is you're going to enter the property name. So the property is going to be color. Then after that, you put a colon, and then you write the name of the color, whatever you want. So let's say red. And now after that, you're going to put a semicolon at the end. So after the value, don't forget to add this semicolon. And once you hit refresh, you will see that the color of the heading again changed to red. You can change it to anything. For example, you can use a different color as well. You can use blue, for example. If you go back and refresh it, now it changes to blue. So it depends on what kind of color that you want. So this is another way you can add basically a style sheet, or you can say CSS code in your HTML tags. This is through inline style sheets. Now, this way of adding the styles is not really encouraged. This is not a good way to add the style, because right now we're just learning everything. So we're just adding one property, one value, and that is pretty much it. But you're not going to be doing that. You're basically going to be entering many properties for just one single tag. So just think about it. If you visualize it, if you have many values, many properties stacked on one single line in front of each other, and if you make an error somewhere, let's say you miss a colon somewhere, you miss a semicolon somewhere, then it's going to be very hard for you to find that mistake. So this is something that is not encouraged. This is the way of adding the style or CSS code that you're going to avoid. So don't use this method. So, but still, for knowledge, it's always good to know something like that. Now I'm going to remove this one. Now let me show you the last way that we can basically add a style sheet, and that is through external style sheet. So I'm just going to refresh this so we have everything reset again. Now, first of all, create a new file. And now save this file. Now you're going to make sure that you save this CSS file that we are about to create right now at the same location where you saved your HTML file. This is important. So now I saved my HTML file on the desktop. So I'm just going to put my basically CSS file over here as well. So all you're going to do is I'm just going to write style.css. .css is actually the extension, and style is just the name. So you can just write anything over here. You don't have to write style.css. It can be anything. It's just basically a name. Make sure you don't put numbers over here. Obviously, you can't put a number over here. It has to start with a letter, and it should have no spaces between them. Now, once you have written the name and the extension of the CSS file, you're going to click on save. And I just want to show you how does it look like. So if you can see over here, this is my style sheet that I created, and this is my HTML file that I have. Now I'm going to enter some style over here. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to open my browser. I'm going to open everything up. So now you can see style.css has been saved. Over here, you can just write, what do you want to change? So selector first, selector H1. What do you want to change? We want to change, let's say, the background color this time. So over here, if I write back, you can already see that I got an option of background color. I'm going to select that. That is the name of my property. And you can just select any color from over here as well, or you can type in your own color. Let's say we want to change it to brown. Now, my selector is H1. The property is background color. The value is brown. Same exact syntax that we were following in the internal style sheet, we are doing it over here as well. Now, when you have an external style sheet like this, a separate file for a style sheet, you're not really going to add any style tags over here. You're not really required to do that. Now, if I go back and refresh, nothing really happens. And if you think about it, there is no connection between my HTML file and my CSS file. How are they connected to each other? They are not connected to each other, right? So now we have to make, basically we want to connect them together. So how would you do that? Now for this, I'm going to go on the next line over here after the title. You don't have to go after the title. You just have to make sure that what I'm about to show you, you do it in the head tag. It can be anywhere in the head tag, right after the head tag, right after the meta tags, right after the title. It doesn't really matter, but it should be in the head. Now I'm going to add a tag called link. Link is a self-closing tag. Inside the link, we have the first attribute rel, that is basically the attribute of relation, inside of which you're going to write style sheet. Now this tag is used for many different purposes and we will take a look at them as we move on in the course. But for now, I can tell you that your link tag is used to link your HTML file with another file, basically. In this case, it is going to help us link this HTML file with the CSS file. Now in the link, we said that the relation of this link with the, basically relation of this link in the HTML file is going to be with the style sheet. This is what we did in the rel. After that, you're going to press a space and you're going to add another attribute of href. Href simply means hyper reference. Now, hyper reference, this basically means that now write the name and extension of the file that you want to connect with your HTML file. So HTML file is the new file.html. We want to connect this HTML file with the file that we created, style.css, right? So just write the name and the extension of the file. So you're just going to write style.css. Already you can see the option pops up. And now when I go back and refresh it, it works. The background color of your heading is now brown. This is exactly what I wrote over here. That changed the background color of the heading to brown. You can also write another property. We can say change the color to, let's say, white. And now if I go back and refresh it, the text color goes white, the background color goes brown, and that is how you can add colors in your HTML files. So those are the three different ways that you can add a style sheet: the internal, the external, and the inline. The inline that we are going to avoid, you can either use an external or an internal, whatever you like. The professional approach would be adding an external style sheet. This is what you're going to do when you're actually developing a website. For the course, however, since I want to show you everything, I want to explain you everything with the HTML code, I'm going to keep my style sheet internal over here so that we can just refer back to the HTML code and I can show you everything, what I'm doing and why am I doing and how is it impacting our code. But you can also use the external style sheet for basically trying everything out. That is completely up to you. So that is how we add CSS in 3 different ways. All right, guys, so I hope that you understood each and everything that we tried to learn today. So today we basically tried to understand that how can you add a CSS code in your HTML files? How can you basically add it through different means? What are the different types of style sheets and what is the difference between them? So this was just to show you how to add a CSS code. Now in the future classes, we are basically going to discuss each and every property in a lot of detail. We're going to discuss about many different properties that CSS has to offer and how you can use them. So thank you so much for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next one.